Good morning, church. I'm out here on my porch because it is a beautiful afternoon and going to talk a little bit about Tuesday of Passion Week. Yesterday, I had said that Jesus was proclaiming his authority over creation, proclaiming his authority over the temple. And of course, that was setting up some teaching that was going to happen on Tuesday, which all three of the synoptic gospels um, really talk about this. They share the same accounts almost all the way through this particular day. It is really remarkable. Some of them have a couple ones that the others don't, but for the most part, the framework is the same with Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And I just want to walk you through some of those. They were long readings, and so I'm not expecting you to know every single bit of it, but if you do read it, it is pretty fascinating. Let me share with you. So right here, we have the significance of Passion Week on Tuesday. We find right off the get-go, Jesus's authority is questioned. And of course, he never really answers that question because he's trapping the Pharisees. And and then he goes on in all three of the synoptic gospels to rebuke the Pharisees through a few parables. The parable of the tenants, the parable of the wedding guests, which really talking about the Pharisees. And they began to catch on. Matter of fact, they were kind of playing along, playing right into Jesus' hands, really. And then they realized, hey, this guy's talking about us, and so they tried to trap him, but by talking about questions like the resurrection in marriage and things like that, or taxes with, should we pay taxes to Caesar and whatnot. And every time they question him, whether it even be the greatest commandment, what's the greatest commandment? It ended up being a failure because they heard his answer and went, what do we say? We can't say anything because what he's speaking is really truth. And they were amazed at his teaching, but yet still they wanted to get rid of him. And Jesus in this day goes on to teach a significant portion of Matthew, in fact, on the signs of the end of the age. And there's a particular reason why this is key for Tuesday and the theme of Tuesday, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then also, all of them end, all the synoptic gospels end with the religious leaders plotting to kill Jesus. They wanted to get rid of him. Didn't matter if they were amazed at his teaching or not. He was a threat to them. And so here's the significance then. So by rejecting Jesus, the religious leaders were rejecting the God they claimed to follow. And this was the point. This is what Jesus was trying to point out with these parables, is that, listen, you guys are put on here as stewards. You were here to steward the earth. This is why any man or woman is put on the earth, to be a steward of the earth, but yet you're rejecting God's plan of redemption. God has this plan to redeem the world, and it involves Jesus, right, the Son of God, the Redeemer, who is going to come and ultimately die for sin. But it also involves judgment and wrath as well, which is why Jesus goes in to teach about the signs of the end, because Jesus is pointing to the fact that there is an end to all of this, that God has a plan to redeem this world. We should not be comfortable in any shape, form, or whatever, which gets to some of our significance. What's the significance of this day for us? I think it's a reminder that we exist on earth as a steward of God's creation. Yet, how often do we reject God's redemptive plan? We get settled into being comfortable living and content living in a fallen world. We almost enter into those parables where we become like owners. We're not tenants anymore. We're owners. And God, we don't want you to mess up our our life right now, we got it good. We don't want to be involved in this mission that you have, because life is pretty good for us right now. We become like owners instead of tenants. And then it's a reminder that this world will be redeemed, but only through judgment and wrath. So yes, there is a Redeemer who came, and his name is Jesus. He's about to die on a cross here in this account. But yet, there is a day that's going to come where God is going to pour out his wrath. And it's a reminder to us that the world will be redeemed, but only through judgment and wrath. And so, the big theme of all of this is believe. It's been riddled all throughout Jesus's teaching, but I think it's really captured in John chapter 12, verses 44 through 50, where John says, listen, and Jesus cried out and said, whoever believes in me, believes not in me, but in him who sent me. And whoever sees me, sees him who sent me. In other words, listen, all right, I am coming to you, but I'm not coming to you on my own authority. I'm not coming to you as a representative of myself. I'm coming to you as a representative of God. I and the Father are one. If you see me, you've seen the Father. Okay, so you believe in me, but in him believes. Whoever believes in me believes not in me, but in him who sent me. And whoever sees me sees him who sent me. I have come into this world as light, so that whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness. If anyone hears my words and does not keep them, I do not judge him. For I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. But get this though, the one who rejects me, okay, rejects me and does not receive my words as a judge, the word that I have spoken will judge him on that last day. So Jesus came into this world to save the world, but he's speaking truth. And if we ignore that truth, those words are going to come back and judge us on the last day. For I have, Jesus says, I have not spoken on my own authority. Again, it's not me, but the Father who sent me as himself given me a commandment. But the Father who sent me has himself given me a commandment. And what is that commandment? What to say and what to speak. And so his teachings come with authority. And I know that his commandment is eternal life. So Jesus is coming not to judge the world. He's coming to save the world. He's coming to be the embodiment of truth and light and life. And yet, when we reject his words, those words will ultimately come back and judge us. What I say, therefore, I say as the Father has told me. And so, to kind of end this, as a way to ponder what's going on here, I wonder, is it possible that you've learned to find comfort and satisfaction in living in this fallen world, that the idea of being a part of God's plan to redeem it falls on deaf ears? Do we see ourselves as stewards of God's redemptive plan for this world in every sense of that word? Do we see ourselves as ambassadors of peace, advocates of justice, vessels of sincere and sacrificial love? By the way, right in the smack middle of all of this teaching was what was the greatest commandment: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. These teachings should remind us that God has a redemptive plan which centers around Jesus as he works through the church. And that a day of judgment and wrath, is to come. So let's not be comfortable or content with living in a fallen world, but let's let's heed Jesus's words and be those tenants that will take care of and steward his kingdom as he is working to redeem this world. Let's be a part of it and not be content as owners in it. That's what I got for you today. God bless.